Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Prescott's Town Council meeting for Monday, August 22nd, 2022. I'd like to start the meeting with the usual call to order, and I'll note that we'll begin this meeting of council, as always, by acknowledging that we are meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the Oneida and Haudenosaunee peoples. Right to item 2, approval of tonight's agenda. Recommendation is that the agenda for the council meeting of August 22nd, 2022, too many 22s, I'm going to screw that up 100 times tonight, be approved as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Ostrander, seconded by Councilor Young. Any discussion on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carried. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest this evening? None. None from out east. Nothing under 4 presentations tonight. Nothing under 5 delegations tonight. Takes us to 6 minutes of the previous council meeting. So we do have 2 items there from our meeting and the tri-council meeting. 6.1 is July 18th, 2022. That's our council meeting. Recommendation reads the council minutes dated July 18th, 2022 be accepted as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Burton, seconded by Councilor Shankar. Any discussion on that set of minutes? Being none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion's carried. And 6.2 is the tri-council minutes. That's from the meeting we held in Spencerville with Edwardsburg Cardinal and Augusta on July 28th. Recommendation reads the tri-council minutes dated July 28th, 2022 be accepted as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Ostrander, seconded by Councilor Burton. Any discussion on that set of minutes? We do have the one recommendation coming up shortly under consent reports that arose from that meeting. Seeing no comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. 7, communications and petitions. Nothing on the agenda tonight. 8, consent reports. We do have a number of items on the consent reports. Councilor Burton, I did see your email. It was 2 items, correct?
Correct, yep.
So we want to split those off. And so why don't we just cover those 2 items first, then, that you wanted to bring forward from the information package, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
So
Thank you.
If you want to cover those first, and then, then we'll do the rest of it. Is everyone okay? We handle the rest as one item under consent? Okay, sounds good. Councilor Burton.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I just wanted to do a resolution of support for number 4, which is the Lanark Plant Use Initiative. And number 9, the Bill 109, More Homes for Everyone Act. Moving forward, our clerk will get a resolution in support of those 2 initiatives.
Certainly. Any other discussion on that? Standard practices, we bring that back to the next meeting for further discussion on a resolution prepared by staff. So just those 2 items. Clerk has those. See no other comments. So I don't think we need a motion on that unless we really want one. So we just do it with staff direction. So we'll bring that back to the next meeting on those 2 items. Planet Youth, and what was, I'm sorry, Councilor Burton, the other one was the provincial
Bill 109, the More Homes for Everyone Act.
Sure. Okay, so excellent. So we'll bring that forward. Thank you. So we'll bring that forward to the next meeting for discussion on the resolutions of support. The other items we do have under the information package. The motion reads that all items listed under the consent report section of the agenda be accepted as presented. And that includes, of course, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4. The only, and I don't think we need to split it off, but just to speak a little bit on the that steering committee for physician recruitment. Were we looking at setting members for that this evening, Mr. Armstrong, or how are we?
I'll say you refer that to the clerk.
That's right. You were away.
Through you, Mayor Todd, I believe that each municipality was going to come up with their champion was the term, and then I think that was going to go back, and then we were going to form the committee that way.
Okay, so we could look for that this evening. We could handle this as the recommendation to approve the reports, and then do a separate motion if anyone wants to volunteer themselves to be on that group.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and so because it is the 3 municipalities, 1 representative from each.
I think so.
I don't, we didn't discuss the firm. I mean, I should know this because I made the motion, but I think we did kind of leave it a little loose just to see who all would attend for that. But I think we're safe if we do one for now, and then if they all do say two, we can add one later if that works for everyone.
I think the whole thing would operate better with two personally. If one is missing, we don't have the voice.
Oh, yeah. I just don't know what they're gonna put forward, because Pat did talk about, Mayor Sal talked about the whole champion concept, and he kind of threw that in at the last minute, so I'm not really sure where EC was with representatives. We can name two tonight too. Whatever you guys want to do.
Was it similar to the recreation, or were we gonna do something for the recreation as well?
We haven't gone that far with the committee yet, because I thought we had to, weren't we gonna, James, go through the website and get everything organized first? Wasn't that I
think we all agreed on the terms of reference for the committee. I just don't think we've kind of created it yet, but it kind of makes sense to do it when we go to recruit all of our committees in September, October, to make that at that point, because there's quite a few community members at the same time. We would look for participation in.
Yeah, the health thing though, we talked about the urgency of it at this point to get it going.
Okay. Question, if I may?
Sure.
Thank you. So would it be better to wait to add two members to this committee until we form all of our committees?
No, so if I can, I think because this is kind of a council only, we can go ahead, get started, start moving down, set some parameters and whatnot, I think would be helpful. But because the rec committee has a lot more community members, then it would make sense to recruit them once we have a full slate, because we're going out, I believe, in September to recruit for all of our committees across the board. So yeah, it's just community involvement versus non-community involvement, and it makes sense to get moving on the recruitment now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we'll just go with the one member for now, if everyone's good with that. Sorry, Councilor McConnell, please go ahead.
First of all,
I know you're not shy, but just let me know you're there every now and again.
I'm here. Okay, first of all, Leanne, thanks for volunteering for the committee. I think it's important that we get this committee started now, because it's of vital importance, not just to our community, but to our neighbors as well. But given the fact that we have, at the last count, at least 10 people running for council in Prescott, God only knows who is going to be sitting here in November. So while I think it's important to get one person nominated now for the committee, I would suggest that, like Ray suggested, that two people would be the ideal, and leave the second one until after the election to see who's actually sitting around the table. A simple suggestion of mine.
Yeah, no, I think it's an excellent point. I think any way we go right now, though, is correct. I think just getting it started is a good thing. And I do want to reserve, I mean, I don't want one of the seats for myself anyways, but I do have to I want to talk to Mayors Malenka and Sayah about this, as well as Doug, of course, is chair of the health unit board. And I want to see so if Doug's got any extra plans on that as well, just look at from the mayor's perspective too. So I think, in this case, you can't have too many cooks in something this important. But I think we'll just have to see if after tonight, Matt, if you could just reach out to your counterparts and see. I don't know if they're meeting tonight. Are they on tonight as well? Or, anyone know what the schedule?
It's where Cardinal is.
And I think Augusta might be next week. So.
Okay, so we'll get an update on that as well. So we'll put Councillor Burton forward as a representative for now. I haven't taken the vote yet on the recommendation for the consent reports. I don't believe, have I? I did get mover and seconder. Remind me again now. Oh, I didn't. I thought I did. So the recommendation reads that all items listed in the consent report section of the agenda be accepted as presented. Mover, please. Moved by Councillor Shankar, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. Any further comment on the items? Seeing none, all in favor? And if someone would like to make a motion to appoint or to name Councillor Burton to the steering committee for physician recruitment efforts, moved by Councillor Shankar, seconded by Councillor Young. And we will get some feedback on that, so we know where we're heading on that in the next few weeks. And as I spoke at that last tri-council meeting, I think we need to have a meeting on that as soon as possible, so we can get moving forward. That needs to be a subject of our next tri-council meeting, which we will be hosting a little into September. So, okay, with that then I will call the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Oh, and of course I should mention also that was we've talked about that one for so long, I think, forget about it. So we're agreeing to create that tri-municipal website as well here with that vote as well. So that'll be good to get that moving forward. So 9 committee reports, nothing this evening. 10 mayor, nothing this evening. So I'll move right to outside boards, committees, and commissions. We'll start as always with Councilor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and I have nothing to report this evening. We have a full agenda tonight, so we'll keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McConnell.
Wow, I'm not used to being up this quick. As you probably all know, the 4th show from Shakespeare was canceled. That's The Red Priest. Unfortunately, that was a company that we brought in. It was the same company that we brought in last year to do the show in August. It was a 2-person show, and unfortunately, one of their people came down with COVID. And given the quarantine period, there was no way that the show could continue. So unfortunately, it had to be canceled. Tickets had to be refunded. I know there was a lot of people looking forward to it. It was a great story, and it's just unfortunately it couldn't be presented. But the other 3 shows that we did were well received. As you know, it was our 20th anniversary, and we put a lot of effort into this season. And the people of Prescott and the area certainly responded. Ticket sales were good. Audiences, for the most part, were good. I was told, I wasn't there. I was supposed to work the gate that night, but I had an unscheduled library board meeting that meant I couldn't go. But I think it was 2 weeks ago on a Tuesday night, it rained. And we still had over 60 people come out. They put on the performance, and we still had over 60 people come out in the stands for the show. So that shows some dedication to the performers, and it certainly shows some dedication from the audience that came. We get a lot of people from Ottawa, by the way. A huge part of our audience is from Ottawa, and I know that when we give the Shakespeare their money each year from the town, we do it based on a tourism perspective. And given the fact that such a large part of our audience is coming from the Ottawa area, I think that's well justified that it is bringing tourism in. And being on the gate this year, volunteering to sell the hats and books and stuff, I got to talk to a lot of people from out of town, and it's quite interesting to see how many people from out of town look forward to coming to Prescott. They have supper in the evening, they have ice cream, they poke around down street, they come down for the day. So it's a good thing, the Shakespeare Festival. It's just unfortunate it had to end on a no show. The library board, we had a change at the library the end of June. Jane, who has been our librarian for the last 31 years, retired and is enjoying a well-earned retirement. Anne, who used to work for the town here, some of you may remember from upstairs, she filled in. She was taking the librarian's course and has been hired as on a trial basis as the new librarian. So if you go into the library, you're going to see some changes. There have been some old computers and desks that have been removed. There will be some painting, carpet cleaning, some new furniture. So there's a lot going on with the library board. I'd like to make special note of our chair, Joe Muse, who was with the library board for 12 years. And given what he's got going on in his life this fall, which is a big change, he has retired from the board and from the chair. And we have a new chair, Karen, who is very, I believe, very well prepared to take on the role as chair. So we're looking forward to going forward with her as chair. We already have, I think, either 4 or 5 people willing to join the library board this fall, new members. So we're looking forward to that. And I think you can see some exciting times for the Prescott Library Board going forward. And with that, I guess I will say good evening from the East Coast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. Councilor Ostrander.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a lot. I been helping with the Sunday night concerts all summer, and we've had excellent turnouts. 3 weeks ago, we had Eddie and the Stingrays, and we set a record. There was over 600 people in attendance, and I guess you could say that standing room only, and then some. So that went over real well. This past Sunday, we had Chris Coyer and Alex Florio. They had about a 6-piece orchestra with them and a couple of additional singers, and that was very well received as well. And we've had a good variety this summer, and we finish up this Sunday with Deb Courier and Steve Goodberry with their usual 50s, 60s, and 70s routine. And it's been very good. One other item this weekend is the Food for All Food Bank is having their annual fundraising gala, I guess they call it. It's an afternoon event out at the residence west of town here that we all like to show up at once a year, the Castleman residents. So anyway, they're looking forward to that. I think if it isn't a sellout by now, it certainly will be by the day of the event. It's finger food and a cash bar and that. So weather permitting, it should be a good afternoon. That's it for me.
Thanks, Mike. Councilor Schenker.
Thank you. With Councilor Bird and I welcomed the Spider Club to Prescott a couple of weeks ago, and that was well attended. Quite a good big group, and they came to town and spent some money and had some. So it's nice to see them come. I think did they bring a check or anything like that, or they were raising money? I think
They were raising money. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that was good. And Shakespeare, I think I was one of those 60 people on Tuesday night, Lee McConnell, in the rain. But it was a good show.
For you.
39 steps. It was very good. And it was sad that they couldn't finish it, but I think they had a good year overall. So that was very good. Yeah, other than that, that's about it. We did have some news down street with the young man that was sleeping on King Street. I think he's in a better place now. It wasn't safe for him to be in front of TD Bank anymore with the construction, but as far as I know, he's getting the help he needed, and we wish him well. So I think we have something coming up later that discusses ongoing opportunities for that type of situation. And that's about it. I just also, too bad Teresa wasn't here, because I just wanted to thank her and Councillor Mike and yourself, Mayor Todd, for your years of service to the town. And I know we still have 2-3 months left, but I just want to make that point.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Thank you. St. Lawrence Lodge is meeting tomorrow, the Board of Management tomorrow, and there was no meeting in July, so I have nothing to report there. But on August the 9th, I did travel out to Westport with CAO Matthew Armstrong for the AGM of Rideau St. Lawrence Holdings Incorporated. And I'm very pleased to say we came home with a check for $55,268.
Fairly close, yeah.
It's
good enough.
in that neighborhood anyway. And you recall that their organization decided that they could not pay a dividend last year because of COVID and issues that were going on. So it's very nice that we're back into the receiving the dividend this year, because it goes right into the general fund, and we get to spend it on other things. So Yeah, that was a nice afternoon. And you want to mention the plaque that we unveiled for Joanne?
Oh, of course, yeah, please.
Well, you go ahead. You were there for the unveiling.
Thanks for the reminder on that. The summer's gone by so quickly. I lump that into the time before our last meeting. I think we had most of council there to unveil a plaque for Joanne Crack down by the waterfront in front of Prescott Place. It's August 10th, I believe we did that. Great turnout too. It was fantastic to see so many people out on a weekday afternoon. Weather was quite beautiful for it as well, which was very fitting. And it's just a nice tribute to Joe, who loved that river, loved that waterfront, and it's always, as I said at the time, it's such a shame when you go to events like that. The person you always look around, you want to see the most, is the one that's not there, and that was sad with Joe that day. But it was a very fitting tribute for her, and it's something that wherever Joe is now, I'm sure she's looking down and she's appreciative of that, because she loved that water, loved that river, and all the ships that pass Prescott on a daily basis.
She spent a lot of time down there cleaning it up too.
Absolutely. She was the first person to mention if there were any issues, but she was also the first person to go down and lend a hand to try to fix the issues as well. So Joanne Crack very much missed. Thanks for the reminder on that, Ray.
I'll just finish up with Rito St. Lawrence, if I may. Make one more comment. I'm not positive when we did that changeover, Matthew. It must be most of 20 years ago. We went from Prescott Utilities to Rito St. Lawrence Holdings. So we formed a partnership with Westport, Morrisburg, and Edwardsburg Cardinal. We all put money or goods, I guess more correctly, trucks and supplies and that, into the organization when it was formed, and we own 38.5%.
I think it's closer to about a third. It's about 34%.
Okay. Anyway, that decision almost 20 years ago has resulted in dividend checks of $55,000 for the last number of years. We are getting paid back over and over and over again, where many other municipalities made the decision to join Ontario Hydro. They sold their investment to Ontario Hydro. They got a big lump check. They went out and spent it, and now they don't have anything. We have dividends rolling in. The other point that they always make at every AGM, had we had our customers, our residents, been buying hydro from Ontario Hydro in the last year, they would have paid on average $270 more per year than they paid at Rito St. Lawrence. They make that point every year, and it's something to remember, and praise the council of the day for making the decision that they did almost 20 years ago. That's all.
Excellent point. So we try to make that all the time with people, and they do complain about their rates here in town, and nobody wants to pay whatever the amount is, but we do offer a much better, I think, better service overall as well. I think the whole RSL experiment of 22, 23 years ago now, 99, that just keeps sticking in my head.
My mind is 99, but I'm not positive.
But it was an experiment at the time because everybody else was going another way with Ontario Hydro, became Hydro One, of course, and I think they made a really good decision on that, and very happy with what RSL has done for the community. I did have one more that I did want to mention. It was this announcement did come out yesterday, and we were talking about the Sunday night concerts downtown. We do have another Labor Day concert scheduled now for this year. The Upper Canada Musicians Union through Al Torrance contacted me a couple weeks ago and asked if we'd be interested in hosting again down at the amphitheater. Said absolutely, sounds great to me. Set them up with our staff, and I think it's all fully arranged now. I will read the schedule quickly. So it's Labor Day Monday, September 5th. 2022 at the amphitheater. The schedule of music starts 2 to 3 p.m. Pat Johnson is playing. 4 to 5 p.m. Matthew O'Halloran and his quartet with a performance of some jazz. And then final performance for the day is 7 o'clock. That runs till 8. And that will be Freddie Vett and the Rhinestone Plowboys for an hour of traditional country music. So they will move to the Leo Boyven Community Center if there is rain in the forecast. So the concert will remain in Prescott if there's any inclement weather issues, which I think was the issue last year, was it not? It ended up having to be moved to Brockville at the last minute. So this year, one way or the other, rain or shine, the concert for Labor Day will stay in Prescott. So again, I want to thank Al Torrance and the Upper Canada Musicians Union and everybody, of course, that will be playing here on Labor Day Monday. Great way to end what's been a very, very busy season at the Sunday night concerts, just packed every Sunday night. So great to add one more event to that for Labor Day Monday. Thanks, everyone. So moving on to the very busy meeting that Councilor Burton mentioned a few minutes ago, and we do have a number of fairly big items here under staff tonight. So we'll move on to 12 and 12.1 is staff report 79-2022. We should have a drum roll or something for this because this has been a long time coming. But I'll read the recommendation on our official plan approval. Recommendations: the council adopt the town of Prescott official plan and that the official plan be forwarded as adopted along with the record as required under the Ontario Planning Act to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for final approval. Can I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Burton, seconded by Councilor Young. Mr. Armstrong, did you want to go through the presentation this evening? I didn't ask you how extensive you wanted to deal with this tonight.
I think what we'll do is I'll just hit the highlights of the report, and then that really talks about the major changes that we're looking at. So this started back in 2019, and throughout that process, obviously we've had a pandemic. The province instituted a new provincial policy statement. The provincial policy statement really is what municipalities have to look at when they're creating an official plan. It sets the directive for municipalities and what the province expects in those official plans. So we made a conscious decision to delay that once we found out that in 2020 it would be issued. And then obviously once we were able to incorporate that into the plan, then we had to try and work around the fact that it was very difficult to get people together. So in the course of that time, we did go through visioning workshops. We did them virtually, both from an economic development standpoint as well as a public standpoint. We elicited feedback through surveys, both from economic development and in general public. And then in April of 2021, we had a special meeting of council to review the public engagement and what types of changes would be incorporated into the plan. Further, in April of 2022, we had a statutory open house, and that's where we gathered at the fire hall, and it was fantastic turnout from the public, where there was a lot of input provided, a lot of feedback into what people wanted to see in terms of the official plan, what type of things they wanted to be allowed from a wayfinding perspective, from a environmental perspective, from just a walkability perspective, and in terms of new things that we need to look at when we're looking at development. And then finally, in June of this year, we held the statutory public meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee to review the final plan and make the recommendation to council. So final changes were incorporated into the plan after the June 27th meeting, and that's what you see in front of you this evening. So the Planning Advisory Committee did recommend to council to approve the official plan as presented, as well as moving it on to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for approval. So once it goes to the province, there's a 120-day period that they will take to review it. We've already been through kind of 2 reviews with them as we've been going throughout the process. We've provided all of our feedback as to whether we, have incorporated their feedback or why we wouldn't. And in some cases, it might not just be applicable to Prescott's situation. So I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. In terms of a new section to the official plan, we've added a natural heritage, cultural heritage and development constraints section. So really that deals with all the environmental items. Before it was dispersed throughout the plan. Sometimes it was difficult to find, and now we have a complete section dedicated to that. So it's very simple now when you're dealing with environmental impacts and the studies that are required, as well as what we need to consider when we're dealing with those things. It's all in one section now and really does a much better job of identifying some of those issues. So a lot of people aren't aware, even though that the town of Prescott doesn't have any mines or quarries, we do within 1 kilometer radius of the town. And so therefore there needs to be some consultation when we take a look, and we're looking to develop in some of those areas within the 1 kilometer radius. So I don't think that was really necessarily known before. We've done a lot better job of kind of mapping out where all the hazards are and what people need to consider when they're considering new development. There's also a number of new subsections, and I'm going to kind of not mention all the subsections because they're contained in the next part that I'm going to talk about. And those are really the key changes. So we've incorporated quite a bit of verbiage and policies and goals around active transportation. And really that's getting people to be able to enjoy the town without necessarily always having to drive, but walkability is key. Bicycling, all of those types of activities where you're actually being active in how you're getting from point A to point B. Wayfinding, again, part of the official plan, and making sure that once people arrive in town, they know how to get from point A to point B where they might be looking for. So, I think a lot of people arrive in Prescott and they might pull off the highway and they don't realize that just less than 1.5 kilometers away is the St. Lawrence River. So really getting people to understand what is available in Prescott right from all of our town boundaries to be able to get them to where they need to go, as well as really providing a fostering of that recreation and tourism aspect of what we're trying to achieve. Additional housing units. So additional housing units used to be called secondary units. Now it's all under one incorporated area in the official plan and is dictated by the province exactly what that means. There can be an allowance of up to 2 additional residential units per property, and one's inside, one's outside. So it only applies to certain property types where it's maybe a single family home or a semi-detached, things like that. But that's all now incorporated into the plan as well. Tiny homes, we've added additional policies and goals around allowing for tiny homes in Prescott. And when we get to the zoning bylaw, that will also have an impact on the frontage that we require or the minimum lot size and those types of things. So when we think about our planning documents, the official plan is kind of the overall overarching document that says, here's our goals, here's our policies and procedures, or not necessarily our procedures, but our policies. And then that translates into the zoning bylaw. So after we're done with our official plan, our next step and our next milestone is to redo the zoning bylaw to really reflect what those changes were in the official plan. Including in terms of the key changes as a tourism, economic development, and downtown revitalization. So I think we've all spent a fair amount of time talking about those particular goals, and really what we're looking is supporting additive policies around communal lodging in Prescott, as well as mixed use in the downtown core, and providing an economic development and tourism committee. So that's all now providing that enabling language and policies in there. Urban agriculture, we heard from the the public that that's something that they would like more policies around and more ability to do so. And so really it's talking about rooftop gardens as well as community gardens and communal gardens. So that's been added in there as well. Indigenous engagement, there's much more strengthening of those policies around when and how we would engage with our Indigenous communities. Natural heritage, obviously looking at our wetlands, woodlands, and wildlife habitat, making sure that we're able to develop in a way that still respects those areas and not taking away from perhaps a habitat of an important species, but at the same time, perhaps also finding a mitigating way to provide additional habitat if we do have to take part away. So, and then obviously environmental protection. So when we think back to all of the feedback that we heard from the public and the input that we received, those were kind of the really big areas, as well as it matched fairly well with some of the changes to the provincial policy statement. So at this point, we have a very large document. There's one that's the clean copy that you see in front of you this evening. There is another copy that we're required to keep, which is called the redlined copy, which shows every single change in whether it's wording to sections, whatever it might be, that the ministry requires, so they can see exactly what the changes are from point A to point B. If it's adopted this evening, then there's a number of documents we have to gather together, including all of our Indigenous engagement, all of our public, when we undertook all of those activities, as well as some assertions from staff to say what we actually did and we achieved what we said we were going to do. So I think we also have Nadia with us this evening, and I believe Samantha as well from WSP. Obviously, they've been our consultants that have led us throughout this process, and it's been 3 years now that we've been cracking away on this, and very happy that we're able to bring it to council this evening for final adoption and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. To our consultants also, thanks for enduring us all this time and leading us to this very happy occasion. Any comments from the WSP side of things tonight?
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. And Samantha's just having some tech issues, but she is listening. She just doesn't have her video on. I just want to thank the town staff, and I also want to acknowledge our sub-consultants, Hemson Consulting, who worked on the growth management report, and CGIS, who worked with us on the official plan schedules. And it's been a great process, and I'm happy that we're here. And I do want to thank also to town staff, members of the public, council for reviews and input. I think it is a good forward-thinking document, and I hope it serves the town and the community well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Open up for comments, questions from members of council. 3 years, folks, you gotta have something to comment about this. Councilor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. It has been a process, but it's been a good process. We've had some really good brainstorming sessions on what we can improve, what we need to work on, and everything else about the big long process. But you know, I think we did our due diligence for the town, and town staff worked really hard on this, as well as council. So it's nice that it's coming to an end. It's still going to be a live document, though, that we can go back and look at if we need. But it was a good process for sure. Thank you
very much, Councilor Burton. Other comments from the other side of the chamber? Councilor Ostrander.
Well, I was very proud of myself. I read about 90% of it, hung right in there. It's very lengthy, but it's very totally complete. That's the nice part of it is you go from one section to the next, and it's one of those reads you can't put down type of thing. And easy. But anyway, it certainly does cover all the phases that we dealt with over the past couple of years. And a big thank you to Matthew. I know he spent long and arduous hours on it to make sure the fine tuning was what we needed in it. And it has, I think, anybody that looks at it and knows official plan will realize that it's a very infinite document and can be handed down for the next several years, I would think, to those who need it to work on it, and to anything that comes to Prescott. I don't think there'll be any surprises as to what we have to offer and how we go about doing it. So well done.
Comments, Councilor Schenker?
I just want to say, 3 years is a long time, but this is a real important part of Prescott and our administration. And a big thanks out to Nadia and all the public's input. There's a lot of new things in here, like the tiny homes and economic development, environment, and tourism that needed to be added. So as Councilor Burton said, it's a living document. We can add to it and keep progressing forward. So yeah, well done. Good job.
Thank you. Last words.
Well, I believe this one should last the next council.
Hopefully not the 10 or 12 years that the last one went though.
Their entire term. I think we have to redo them every 5 to 8 years, is it? So the next council might escape the.
We should start the process.
Yeah.
And anyway, but if something comes up 8 months from now and it wasn't anticipated at this time, we'll have to open the process up for a specific issue that might have shown up unexpectedly.
Councilor McConnell, I keep usually not this quiet. I mean, can you forget you're so far away, but any words from yourself tonight on the OP?
I'm quiet because I don't want to disturb the neighbors here whose living room I'm sitting in. But actually, yeah, there was something I wanted to say. And I think it's important to note that this is our town plan. That's the town of Prescott's town plan. But there's some stuff in there that we probably would have never put in there had it not been for the provincial government. We're mandated in a lot of things that we do by the provincial government. And for example, the small tiny houses on existing lots with houses that are already there. 3 houses on one lot, or 3 residences on one lot, for example. So you can make an apartment in your basement, you can make another one in your garage. That's probably not something we would have done. We've been used to here over the years, over the decades, to having a town where houses are somewhat separated, neighborhoods that are not crowded, non-parking problems. And some of these things that the province has introduced are really geared to the cities, Ottawa, Toronto, Kingston, where housing is a real problem, and they are trying to shove as much as far as residents that they can get into existing neighborhoods. And while we may see a few of those things happen in our town, it's not something that we want to see going up and down every street. That would destroy the fabric of life that we enjoy here. That's something that's imposed on us by the province. And I think it's important that we note that we probably would have never put that in on our own. That's really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McConnell. Any other comments?
Just wondering if I could make a couple comments. So first of all, I wanted to thank council. You've obviously endured this for a few years now and going through the process. Want to thank all of the public that both submitted surveys, participated in focus sessions and came to the open house. I lost the bet by a lot in terms of how many people showed up to the open public house. And I don't mind losing that bet every single time because it was fantastic, the number of people that came out and the feedback that we received on that evening really made this for a much more homegrown document and really spoke to what people are looking for. And then finally, I would like to point out Dana Valentine, who's our economic development officer, who has spent countless hours shepherding this through, really kind of getting as many people involved as possible and also keeping me on track in terms of making sure that we meet our deadlines. So I would really like to thank Dana as well on that. And obviously WSP, been a fantastic group of consultants to work with, always willing to be flexible. The last couple of years, it has taught us that flexibility is one of the things that we really need to think more about in our day-to-day lives, as well as what we do from a professional standpoint. And they've been fantastic at that. So we very much appreciate that. And we're happy to bring this forward this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A couple real quick comments from myself. I wanted to just thank as well everyone that was involved. The community involvement was fantastic. This is a dry process, or it can be, and getting that much community involvement is quite admirable. And it does show the number of people in Prescott that do have really solid community spirit now. I think we're at a high now in terms of what we've seen in the past in terms of Prescott pride, and it really comes out in consultations for things like this, because it means, hey, come on out to the official plan meeting. And, that's not exactly gonna, it's not Mardi Gras. It's not gonna draw tons and tons of people, but we've had really good support and really good comments and suggestions, as has been mentioned, that have been incorporated into the final plan. The other thing I want to mention about the plan itself is Mike's actually right on that. It is, I'm not going to say it's a can't put down document, but it's very plain spoken. It's very just right out there. It's a modern document that anybody can pick up and read and understand and immediately understand, hey, that's what that's what they want to do with my town. And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. And it's a long way from the old official plans that were terrible, confusing, complicated with legalese, too many cooks. Some of them were very, very bad and very difficult to understand. This is just a great document that anyone can pick up and immediately understand what the town's priorities are and what the focus is. And also through that, as Councillor McConnell mentioned, what the provincial focuses are, because obviously that's always going to be reflected in any official plan. The other comment I want to make is there's a lot I could, but I just want a density in the incentive. That's actually, I think it's at 6.5.2.2. And it ties into a lot of what I like about what we're doing with the official plan here, because the density and incentive section embraces the fact that we're going to have to look at higher density developments. We're going to have to look at added housing across the board. We all know we're in a housing crisis in the province right now. And whether it's Ottawa or Toronto, Kingston, no matter where it is, we're all going to have to look at that, add to the housing growth, add to that stock so we can bring the prices down and make sure people have places to live. And I think the density and incentives really is something we can be proud of, because that section includes the allocation for the higher density, but it's also very clear in that the higher density, and when we're adding houses, we're always going to be looking to adding incentives. So if you're adding whether it's a small subdivision or an apartment building, townspeople may get a park out of that, may get play structures out of it, may get actual living and breathing facilities that will better the quality of life. So it's not just going to be, it's not about just and Lee makes an excellent point there. We don't want to be throwing up apartment buildings and increasing density across the board. We're going to have to look at it in some ways. And I think we already have with the development over on Boundary, and there'll be more coming. But this shows the other side of it, is that we're not only using it to cram people into Prescott. Actually, we're not using it to cram people into Prescott, but we are using it to better the quality of life here as well. And that's the one thing I keep coming back to when I look at the document, because it really does speak a lot for small town values, but also accepting the reality that we need to grow, we need to build houses, and we need to, move forward and make hopefully life more affordable for everyone, especially when it comes to putting a roof over their heads. So I just wanted to mention that because that's something I picked up on a few times through this, and I think it really goes to the reality of, you know, where we're heading. And Council really good point with supporting provincial activities on this as well, and it all ties in to how much the province is going to be doing in this next term of provincial government to build more houses across the province. That's going to be the big push. And I think all municipalities have to get on board that train and assist with that building. I think with our OP, we're doing that. In terms of timeline, though, have we heard anything back from MMAH in terms of final approval? Have we gotten?
So from this evening, we would submit our documents probably next week or early the following week. And then they have the 120 days. So we would be right around Christmas or New Year's.
Okay, so by the end of the year, there's a reasonable chance this could be back and hopefully just approved, but you never know when these are put out there. So this is not the absolute final step tonight, just to let everyone know.
So unless they have any major changes, then it would be approved as adopted.
Yeah. But just to let everyone know out there, the province does have the final say on these matters, of course. So it will have to come back to us. And the second part of this always was a complete revamp of the zoning bylaw as well, right after this.
Mm-hmm. So as soon as we have MMAH sign off, then we will get going in the new year on the new zoning bylaw. There's quite a bit, obviously, that we've been making notes as we've been going through, as well as we've been going each time we come to minor variance or when we have a planning application. We've really taken some of that feedback and said, you know, what do we really need to consider in terms of setbacks, in terms of density, in terms of building height, all of those things, so that we meet what our goals are, but at the same time, we allow for what really the market is really looking at in terms of providing residential opportunities and commercial opportunities.
So I just, in a way, this is a great step forward tonight, obviously, but then there's the next step with MMAH. And then there's also, I always looked at it as a two-step process with zoning, because that's what actually takes the OP and turns it into the sort of the real world living document, as was mentioned earlier, that is utilized by the planning department. But great progress tonight. This is a really nice step to move forward. So I'll just before I call the question, any final comments? Anything else from anyone? Well, thank again our friends from WSP for all their hard work on this. Thank all the public that supported us on this and gave great suggestions, and the staff that helped bring it all together, of course, all the way along as well. And it's been so long. I do have a mover and a seconder. I just better check. Otherwise, Lindsay will be throwing something at me from. Okay, so with that, then I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And from that to 12.2.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. So 12.2 is staff report 80-2022 on update the museum and fall opening hours. Recommendation reads that council approve the request for the museum and visitor center to remain open from September through December 17th, 2022, Thursdays to Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Shankar, seconded by Councilor Young. Matt, are you taking this?
Sure, certainly. So Samantha's a little bit under the weather, so I'll be taking the report this evening. Thank you very much. And so we're very pleased to say that coming up towards the end of August, we've had over 600 people come to the Museum and Visitor Center this summer since May 30th. And that's really good news that, I think we went a couple of years without anything. And then this year has seen a really great rejuvenation of that. There's been fantastic sales in terms of Prescott wear, and some of the Prescott vendors have participated in selling things at the museum, and that's gone really, really well. And we've been able to refer them to those other stores. So we're very pleased with our first year of outcomes. At the same time, there's always lots left to do. We would like to work on digitizing the collection so that you'll be able to actually experience it right on our website as well as visiting it in person. And so with that, we do have the ability within the current budget to continue with a seasonal individual 3 days a week on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to keep the museum open from a guided standpoint. People will still be able to participate from a non-guided standpoint, but we would like to have that from a guided standpoint. Saturdays, we've seen lots of movement and people coming in, and so I want to support that throughout the fall and leading up to Christmas, and then really working on those digitization initiatives. So really in front of you this evening is asking if we can move forward with that temporary seasonal position and maintain those drop-in hours and guided tours until December 17th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. Open it up for comments, questions. Councilor Burton.
Thank you, Matthew, for your going over the report. That was one of the questions I was going to ask, is how many visitors we've had. That's fabulous. I mean, people don't know that, you know, our museum and visitor center is quite modern, right? It's quite modern, and it's bright and it's beautiful, and it's some really unique pieces of items in there. And one of the sections, I don't know if people know this, but we have a Leo Boyden section there, which is really cool. So if you haven't been to the museum, and check it out. So it's really well worth extending the hours and letting those people that haven't been able to attend the museum to go check it out.
One thing I forgot to mention, if I may, is we'll also be working with the schools throughout the fall to get them visiting the museum and enjoying what it has to offer. And we think that will lead to additional visits from parents, aunts and uncles. And so we're really excited about what that's going to lead to. And then eventually we're going to work on some scavenger hunts, very specific things that you'd have to find at the museum, things like that. So we have lots of programming that we can build on, and we look forward to rolling those out.
Thank you. Just a follow-up, if I may. I just wanted to thank Samantha as well. When the Spider Bike Express people were there was about, would you say it was about 30?
Yeah.
30 or so. Samantha created these loot bags, these Prescott loot bags for them. So that was their first. They parked down at Riverwalk Park, and then they walked up the hill to the visitor center, and then they scattered out throughout the downtown and had lunch and ended up at the amphitheater. So yeah, so she got some little loot bags for them with Prescott wear. So they really appreciated that too. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm in favor of this recommendation, but I just want to know, Matthew, like after December 17th, are we going to have a conversation before that about?
Yes, I think so. We'll probably move more to doing by either volunteer. We'll reach out to the Historical Society if they would like to provide hours during the week, or we'll have another discussion to say, you know, where are we in the digitization, and is there something that we'd want to continue 2022, 2023 season. So it's yeah, I think there's the more discussion. It really depends on how we're making our headway on that.
Very good, thank you. And one more thing along that line, I dropped in on the museum on Friday, and they got some very neat merchandise. Our kids call it merch these days, you know, and very reasonable and good quality. So, you know, when you visit towns, we've all done it, right? We go to Florida, you buy 3 t-shirts for $9.99, and you come home, wear them once, throw them out. But this stuff is good stuff, and it's nice to have. And Dana, I wish Dana was here, but she'd say, like, it's flying off the shelves. So that's good. And it's reasonable. I don't think we're doing it to make money, but we're doing it to get our name out there, you know, and
absolutely
Prescott proud, so to speak. So that's good. Thank you.
Comments? On the merch aspect of that, how are we on the online sales portal?
So we wanted to kind of solidify our inventory for this year. And then for 2023 is when we're going to move to the online. What we really need to watch, though, is that we don't end up being too successful and then having to dedicate staff just to fulfilling orders. So that's why we're kind of holding off a little bit on that. And but for 2023, that's our goal.
Because yeah, oddly enough, I mean, when we first started with the sweatshirts and some of the different hats and everything we did a couple of years ago, I got a lot of comments online about it. People that don't live in town anymore, well, hey, can I buy them through the website? How do I get one? And actually, I think we could actually, you're right about that, though. Maybe we don't want to get too heavily into the online sales and require, but I think we do quite well with that, especially with some of the designs we have now. So they're actually they're quite appealing. Like everything that's being done is really nice.
I think Councillor McConnell might.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lee.
Thanks, Brett. I'm really pleased to see that the museum, they want the museum to be open in December. I mean, we had such a problem with the museum and a question over what to do with it over the past few years that it was a big step to get rid of the old building and move in where we were and spend the money. But it's bigger, the displays are well done. They can be rotated. I mean, I pop in there once in a while, and the last time I was in, I talked to some people from, well, hell, I forget where they were from, but it was a long ways away from here, somewhere in the United States, and they were looking for information on something, and I was able to provide it to them. So it was kind of gratifying from my standpoint, and it was really nice to see that they visited our museum to see if they could find out this information. And that's one of those things that I think is just going to increase as time goes on. As far as the merchandising stuff goes, I think that's great. It just adds to the town coffers. I would ask, though, as the town's representative on the Shakespeare board, given the fact that our season was cut short, we do have stuff that we sell as well, like Shakespeare hats, our 20th anniversary book. I'm wondering if we could add that to the stock that's for sale in the museum for the fall season.
We would be very happy.
It was already there for sure. And I suspect the others could be easily brought over.
We'd be very happy to do that.
It's not a huge quantity of things.
Excellent.
It all helps, so that's a good point. In the off season for that. Any other comments? I just wanted to add, I'm thrilled we're at this point because as those of us, like the Forters Museum has been a question we've had to answer for a long time. And I think we've answered it really well with this. You all know how passionate I was going back a few years ago, how much I wanted to get our presence back on King Street. And, we looked at different options and this one worked out quite well in the end. There was a significant amount of renovation that had to be done, but it's a beautiful space now. It's in an excellent location right there on the busiest corner in the downtown. More on that in the next item, I think. But it's a great spot. But I wanted to thank one person that we actually haven't mentioned yet, and that's Fraser Lassinger. Because when we first started talking about this, I know when I was talking to Matthew about what we could do to how to sort of position this, Fraser's role was going to be invaluable because he knew the museum, he knows the stock, and that guy's passion for the history of this town and this area is unsurpassed. And so I really want to thank Fraser for all his hard work down there. He formed a great team with Samantha when they were putting the museum together. They did excellent work, and I just didn't want to leave Fraser's name unmentioned tonight. I know we all thanked him on many different occasions, but I want to thank him one more time here tonight, because without Fraser to really kind of take charge at the start of the operation and make sure that the artifacts were well looked after in the transition, this wouldn't have been possible. So big thanks to Fraser for all his work here as well. Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you very much for mentioning Fraser. I jokingly refer to the museum every time I'm talking to Fraser as the Lassinger Family Museum, because I swear to God, every time you turn around in there, it's either his grandfather or his cousin or his uncle or something who has owned this store or done this or been there. So it's kind of a joking thing with Fraser, but I agree. He's very dedicated, very knowledgeable, and we were very lucky to have him when we started this museum exchange.
Absolutely. Thanks for that as well, Lee. The only other thing I would comment on, and I know we do have some of this, but I know and we just commented on as part of the official plan, we are doing things downtown, but Indigenous displays and Indigenous history. However, we can expand on those offerings. I don't know if we'll maybe further discussion with Parks Canada for shared exhibits and so on. Not only is it vital and necessary to fostering that education that's so important to reconciliation, it also, quite frankly, I don't want to put it this crassly, but it's a marketing opportunity as well, because people, especially younger people, they're interested in Indigenous history today. And quite frankly, that would be a great addition to bring more people into our museum, because obviously it's a huge part of our heritage along the river here. But anyways, great report, and fantastic to see the museum having such success. So with that, if there are no further comments, questions, I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carried. And 12.3 staff report 81-2022 pedestrian crossing evaluation and options update. Recommendation is that council direct staff to proceed with the following intersection recommendations. One, installation of a PXO type B pedestrian crosswalk at King and Center Street at a cost of $16,000. Two, installation of a PXO type B pedestrian crosswalk at King and George Street at a cost of $21,600. And three, relocate the PXO type B pedestrian crosswalk at King and St. Lawrence Street to the west side of the intersection with rapid flashing lights as previously approved. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Young, seconded by Councilor Burton. First, or is
I'll go first. Thank you, through your Mayor Todd. So this is a familiar report, I think, that we see coming before you tonight. So again, we had the Parsons do a traffic study, transportation engineering review for us on those 7 crossings. We're in front of you June 6th, and then another presentation on June 20th, and then further discussion on July 18th to continue to review what we want to do on some of these crossings. So the sightlines have been improved at King Street and Center Street, and also King Street and George Street, and I think that's I think the feedback's been positive on both those intersections so far. The direction from July 18th was to obtain more detailed quotes on the crossings at Irvine and King and Center, King and George. The quote for Irvine and Edward, it's a little more detailed, as they have to review where the power is going to come from. So we don't have the details ironed out on that yet. So we'll probably see another report, number 5, come in September to review that one. But again, this is a lot of this got a bit of a reiteration of what we've seen in the past reports where we did the traffic study at King and Center and King and George. And both of those, sorry, I'll go back to the King and Center. Again, it really showed that based on the type of street and the vehicular, how many vehicles are crossing that are going through the street during an 8-hour period, and how many people are traveling and walking. It said that a PXO type B pedestrian crossing would be the best style of crossing to put there, to make it as safe as possible for people to cross. We did ask them to evaluate the intersection for a 4-way stop, and they again said that they quantitatively looked at it from a couple different ways, and they said that it really doesn't meet any of the qualifications for a 4-way stop. And again, they said the type B pedestrian crossing was the most applicable. And so the cost at King and Center, so the traffic study is completed, and then the installation of the PXO type B would be about $13,500, and then revising some of the pavement markings is $1,500 for a total cost of $16,000. And then the future use, we would continue to install tactile plates in the sidewalks on either side. The cost of a 4-way flashing stop at this intersection is estimated to be $25,000. As the poles would need to be replaced to get the wire would hang between the 2 poles, and then the light would be mounted on it, and so they'd have to put taller poles out. The traffic consultant and the contractor both indicated that it's not a recommended option for that intersection.
So with that particular intersection and what we're going to talk about on George, it does include the audible buttons. So when you press the button and it's activated, then it will do the chirping sound. So that those with seeing difficulties are able to tell that it is activated and be able to move across the intersection. So
That is included?
that is included.
That's just on George?
It's on Center and King, as well as Georgia and King.
Can I ask a question, Nathan? So when we adapt this new PXO type B crossing, are we still gonna have the lines of sight blocked off? We are, okay.
Yeah, because that was like when you're going, mainly when you're coming from the north and going southbound, it's really difficult to see, and that wouldn't change even with the crossing.
So to that question, in the winter, are we taking those out?
Yeah, the posts that are there would be removed. And so the idea was to put the posts in there and then kind of black out the white markings for the pavement spaces because it's a new change. And then I think that we'll just take the posts out and probably not put them back if that made sense. Or we could put them back either way.
I mean, I think it's, like you said, the feedback has been good so far, but as soon as we take them out, people are gonna park there. So either we do a bylaw blitz on that. We can't keep them there for the winter.
No.
Okay.
So I'm just going to refer to Brockville for a second. And so when you come up or when you go down King Street, you'll notice that what they've done is provided islands that kind of come out at each of the intersections, and that's how they were able to create the sight lines in there. So in the future, when we take a look at King Street and how we would redesign it, those are some of the implications that you'd need to think about, is how do you kind of create that natural barrier so that then you wouldn't have to. But yeah, during the winter, we're probably going to have to remove those simply because it's going to create quite of an issue when it comes to cleaning. But then, next summer, if we find that people just aren't obeying it, then absolutely we would do that. We'll also blitz throughout the winter, making sure several times throughout the day that people aren't parking in those areas.
Councilor Young?
Nathan, the photographs from the PXO Type B pedestrian crossing in Perth do not show any lights. Not be flashing lights at these crosswalks?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So they're to the sides. It's just above the where the white pedestrian walk person is, to the left and to the right. So there's just it's kind of hard to see. They're in yellow.
They are lower, right? They're very visible when they're going.
So it's more in the sight line of the driver as opposed to having to look up or anywhere. It'll be right in your sight line.
Okay. Strobe type lighting?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, good. Okay.
And they do catch your attention more than a slower blinking light. They
Yeah.
really grab your attention. Yeah, they do.
Potentially crazy question. Those strobe lights are rated like epileptics, anyone that's prone to seizures. I mean, I'm assuming they would be.
So they are
tested for that.
MTO sets the standard for it, and also through a CSA.
Okay, as I have to assume that, but I just wanted to ask. I think Councilor McConnell was waving there a moment ago. I think we lost you.
Oh.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to let Ray know. So on Ormond Street, when you go from the medical lab where you get blood taken and you're going south on Ormond Street, there is a pedestrian crosswalk there that when you press the button, it goes crazy. It goes crazy. And you can see it right from the lights. When you turn around the corner, you can see that somebody's crossing there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is part of it that's actually, I mean, you get warning in every video game that any kind of flashing light, and those things are very intense. It's hard to imagine that they wouldn't trigger a response in someone prone to seizure. I mean, I'm not doubting it, but it just like once you see them, they're really like, wow. you cannot miss them. Well, I suppose people can miss anything these days. I wouldn't trust anyone trying to wheel the car with what we see, but I mean, it's pretty difficult to drive by these things and not take note. So Lee is gone for now. Okay, I'm sure he'll be back momentarily. Are you proceeding? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Through you, Mayor Todd. So the next one, King and George is very much similar setup as King and Center. And the cost is a little bit more for the to actually install the PXLB crossing. So the total cost for everything there would be $21,600. And they did again look at four-way flashing stop there, and it would be $30,000. And again, the poles would have to be increased in height. And it was an option that both the traffic consultant and the contractor would recommend. And then at King Street and St. Lawrence. So we already got approval from council to move forward on that one, but we wanted to say that we did look at that intersection a little more closely. And when you look at the sidewalk alignment, if you're coming from the north side, right now you do have to cross St. Lawrence, go across the crosswalk, and then kind of come back across the road again to kind of get onto the sidewalk. There's a sidewalk on both sides, but the one that leads right down to the beach is on that side. So it really does rationally make more sense to have that crosswalk on the west side. The other items that help there too is the viewing for pedestrians versus traffic as well, because the parked cars are on the east side of that intersection. So it does give pedestrians a better viewing of where cars are coming, and then also cars to people crossing. So there's already a pole that's existing on the north side on that side, and then we can relocate. There's a pole in the northeast corner that's not being used that could be relocated to the south side without moving the poles that exist right now where the crossing is. So I think that's a good option. And then we did save a little bit of money on the signal at King and Edward. It didn't cost as much to kind of repair that one. So I think it'll be a wash as far as the money that's spent to do that side. So is there, I guess I'll open it up to see if there's any other kind of sections.
Anything further on those? Okay. I see Councilor McConnell is back. Lee, you had your hand up, I think, before you lost connection. So neighbors boot you out?
No, I was, to be perfectly honest with you, when I was reading through that vast tome this afternoon, I forgot to plug my computer in after, so I had very low power when I started the meeting, and I had to plug in, and whatever I plugged into wasn't charging me. So I'm in the kitchen now of my neighbors plugged into their stove. But God only knows where I'll wind up next.
There's a plug on the stove?
Anyway, the question that I had, and I think this is very important, and I think we've gone that way, but when you're coming into town from the west, the first three streets that have any kind of lights on them are going to be St. Lawrence, George, and Center, and they're all crosswalk streets. So I think it's very, very important that all of the signage, all of the lighting on those three corners is exactly the same. And you've probably discussed that while I was gone, but is that the case?
Yeah, through your Mayor Todd. Yeah, exactly, Councillor. That would be that is an added bonus to modifying these three intersections. That would be consistent the whole way through town, other than when you get to King and Edward. That would be, yeah.
Excellent. That's what I thought, but I wasn't positive.
Anything further, Lee?
No, that's it. I'm gonna look around, see if there's anything to eat here, maybe. No, don't see anything.
Just don't cook your iPad, please.
Always looking for dessert.
Turn the burner off.
Any other comments? All right, it's up to me then. I still can't support this. I've thought. I mean, hey, it's just me, but I've got to say it. I have a very difficult time with this because everybody in town is demanding not this. Most people would like to see back to at least the four-way stops. I know they're not recommending it, and I don't like voting against expert recommendations here. But I mean, we went down this road based on traffic count a number of years ago, and we got us into this situation in the first place. And I just have, when you look at it, I mean, so I actually, one question I would ask, so what we're seeing at Perth, that's basically how it's going to look. So everything's going to be directed, you cross here. So we're not confusing people with multiple, everything's going to be blacked out. But and that's good, because that was part of the problem I think we've had with the crossing on the one side, but marked out on both. But at the same time, I mean, Perth works well because it's a three-way. There, you don't have the cross traffic. And I think that is part of the issue we have, is the cross traffic by, some fairly busy locations with regards to commercial stops and so forth. You've got the traffic coming out of the post office on Center, and then you've got George, you've got the bank and the liquor store right there as well. So I just don't know if this setup, I mean, I'm not going to challenge the report because these guys are the experts, but just knowing what I know of the town, knowing what I know what people want, I wouldn't, like, I've been arguing for the four-way stops for over a year now, and I'm going to stick with it tonight and vote against this solely for that reason. I hope this works. I'm not trying to convince anybody to join me. I hope this works, but I do know what people in town are asking for. And I do think the four-way stops make the most sense for those two intersections. Rocco's, that's a good point Leanne made as well with Orman there by the park, and it works well, but again, it's not a cross street. It's a crosswalk in the middle of it. It's a busy enough road, but it's a crosswalk in the middle and you're not dealing with the cross traffic. So at any rate, I just have a very difficult time. I wish I could support this. I've thought about it a lot the last couple of months, but I will be voting against it tonight. I'm going to ask for a recorded vote as well, please. I don't know if anyone else has any other comment, or we're just going to go into it. I'm fine with that. Okay. I'll ask the clerk to do the recorded vote, please.
Okay, Councilor Britton,
Yes.
Councilor McConnell,
Yay.
Councilor Ostrander,
Yay.
Yes.
Mayor Todd,
No.
Councilor Young,
Yay.
Okay, motion is approved. Thanks, everyone. Well, in terms of construction on all this, what's the time frame again, Nathan, if you could remind us?
I'll let you get back with the electrical contractor on their timing when they can get the parts.
Okay. And the other thing I guess I would ask about this is we talked about the idea of adjusting the boulevard. So it's similar to like Brockville. So it comes out naturally. We don't have to worry about those. That's probably something it's for the next council and budget, but I would recommend that be looked at sooner rather than later. And maybe there's a way you can just extend the curbs there to deal with that in the near future. I'll say next year, if this is the route that's going to be taken, just to make that permanent. Because as I think Gory already mentioned, people are just going to park there. They're pulled out, and obviously you can't leave that stuff all winter plowing. So. And I don't know if it'll be, I would say that it's going to be expensive. It's not going to be that, it's not going to break the bank, but it's not going to be super cheap either to put curbing in there.
Miller Construction can do the curbing now. They used to bring somebody in to do it, but this past year they bought the equipment. So they have done the curb Dibble Street. And if we wanted to build curbs in front of those couple of stores there, they could build it. So that's less expensive and could be done anytime probably.
So there must be a fairly flat rate for something like that if they're doing it that way based on linear foot.
Yes and no. Just because
Complicated.
because you wouldn't be able to install it right on top of the pavement. So we'd have to do some excavation, likely create kind of the coping, then go from there. So yeah, I think
Union Gas is trying to do work on that side too, so.
so.
They do have work coming on that.
Yeah,
it works.
yes, it would reinstate something.
So I think Union Gas reached out late last year, and they had intended on doing basically from George all the way down to Edward, redoing that entire line. over 2 years, but they were supposed to get started this year. They didn't. So we expect it probably next year. So it's a great opportunity to look at, because they're going to have to go right where the parking is, because that's where the line runs. And we would be able to have that opportunity to make those changes, at least on the north side at that point.
Yeah, that could make it a lot better down there. I mean, what's happening now works for now. I mean, obviously one's going to park there with those poles, but it's obviously not permanent. So that's a good, hopefully affordable solution. Hopefully makes it better. Hey, thanks very much.
Brett, excuse me.
Yep.
I know this doesn't relate to the 3 corners that we're talking about, but every morning I walk around the corner of Edward and King with the dog, and invariably there is somebody parked right on the corner, right at the front of the TD Bank, running in to use the green machine. It's a terrible spot. If you happen to be coming south on Edward and going to turn right onto King, I have done that with that car parked there. It's the same thing as with the Royal Bank up the street. I don't know if there's something we can do about that. It's a non-parking spot, but there's flagrant abuse of that corner there.
Imagine if you were driving an 18-wheeler.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there are a few of those in the downtown. I would say the corner of Water and Center is a bad one too, because there's always deliveries going in and out of. Plus, people are parking in what we'd set up as a loading zone that are there all day long, and that's just something else. But that's a whole other topic. But it's definitely something that could be looked at for a blitz with regards to bylaw enforcement. That's a bad corner, and there's probably 5 or 6 others. If anybody's watching, please, I mean, the convenience isn't worth it. Someone's going to get killed at some point parking right on the corners like that in some of these areas, because we've got blind corners. You turn and the vehicle's right there, and if somebody happens to be getting out of it at the time or getting in, unless you're very cautious making that turn, someone's going to get hurt. So I hope people will think of that, but unfortunately they tend not to until they get ticketed. But thanks for that, Councilor McConnell, and obviously we've got with staff. So we do have our 12.4 staff report 82-2022 support services available to vulnerable individuals. This was just brought forward for information, but Mr. Armstrong, just want to hit the highlights of the report, just what we've looked at, what we've kind of experienced in the past, and just kind of review that, because it's obviously has been a major subject recently in downtown Prescott.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So what we really want to try to do here is explain to council as well as the public what happens when we identify a vulnerable individual. And oftentimes they're identified by the fact that they might have become homeless. And so really a lot of times the Mobile Crisis Response Team, which is a partnership between the OPP and the Brockville General Hospital, the crisis team there, that they pair a mental health professional and a community liaison officer to really go out and make that first contact and really try to understand what the situation is, understand what the dynamic might be, and bring in, and they have at their disposal all of the other support and services. And so they'll reach out to the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville and social services. So they have emergency housing that's available for anyone that finds themselves homeless. There's also Leeds and Grenville Interval House, if it happens to be an abused woman and their children, that is available. And if it's a youth, then Youth Connect or Connect Youth provides youth shelters as well. So they bring in those particular resources to be able to offer those services to the individual. At the same time, the mental health and addictions, those professionals are engaged as well and brought on site. And really it's trying to take a holistic approach to create a relationship, to create some trust, to be able to get this individual to a safe and supportive environment. That is the goal of what we're trying to achieve. That's the goal of not only town staff, the OPP, our mental health groups, as well as social services, because the last thing we want to see is someone in a homeless situation. The thing that people have to remember is that there is nothing that forces a person to take advantage of those services. So oftentimes they'll go out, and they might need to go out several times, again, trying to create that rapport with them, trying to create a level of trust, so that they understand, what all of the underlying issues might be, and be able to provide a service to them. But at the end of the day, if they refuse those services, then there's nothing that you can force that person into. But we really wanted to make that point with not only council, but the public in general, is that we're here for them to get them into a supportive and safe environment. And that is our number one goal when we come across these situations. So really, there's quite a few contact numbers in here for Leeds Grenville Addictions and Mental Health, as well as the mobile crisis response team, the shelters, and the phone numbers for them. And again, if you find yourself in a situation where you are homeless or about to become homeless, or you're having a major life crisis and incident, then please reach out, if not to one of those, then to our town staff as well, in our reception, our bylaw department, because oftentimes they will get involved as well in trying to help this individual to get support for them. So really that's what we do from a town perspective. But I want to make sure that everyone understands the level of effort that we go to, and the level of effort that all of those supportive services go to, that really try to help an individual. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. Comments, questions, Councilor Young?
This network has been in place for years and has been used successfully in years. Unfortunately, in the last few weeks, it's more public. It's been more public than it has on other occasions. So it's been looked after in the past, and nobody knows anything about it, but the situation has been solved. This last few weeks, while they've tried to solve it, they haven't been able to. And so they had to take different measures recently, but be assured that we have tried everything up until the point of last week. So anyway, I'm sure that all of us get the question every time we go anywhere, what are you doing? Or how come you're not doing this? Or how come you're not doing that? And we are doing it, So just accept the fact that we have tried and we have dealt with it now.
Mhm.
Councilor Burton.
Thank you. And not only our municipality, but our neighboring municipalities, and, all sorts of help out there for any kind of situation that somebody was in, right?
Yep.
So we can only wish that individual well, and hope he's doing okay. Thank you.
Other comments? I'll just make a couple, because this has obviously been a major issue that we've had to deal with the last few months. But as Ray mentioned, this has been ongoing. It's been something that's really been happening in town for, it's always with us. It's certain aspects of it you don't see at all, and with couch surfing and so forth. So unstable households, people that find themselves homeless. It's gotten more obvious in the area the last little while. The Brockville issues are probably the most public, because couple of the encampments were very, very visible and very close to major roads. But we've had them starting in various areas of Prescott the last few years. Every time I've heard of one, going back, I think 3 winters now, I have actually worked with, I've taken any reports I've gotten, gone directly to our staff, to social services with United Counties Police. They get Connect Youth involved. Matt put a great, all the information is there. But I do want to say that we've always gone after this from a caring perspective, to try to get any individuals in vulnerable situations like that into housing, into a safe and supportive situation to deal with any issues they might be having with regards to mental health and addictions. And that is, as we all know, that is a contributing factor a great deal of the time. But I mean, this last bit, we like I was getting at 1.34 messages a day on this, and you just repeat the same comment over and over. And I'm not criticizing anyone on this, but it's a societal question overall. But there has to be more support for people like this. You can't. There's a certain level when it comes to apprehending people for their own health and their own protection. And obviously, we don't want to live in a state where the police can just take people in under various pretexts. But the problem with situations like this, and it becomes so public on something when it's right on King Street, is you do realize the cracks that have developed in society overall and how easy it is for people to slip through. And it's a sad thing. It's a very difficult thing to see. And I just want to correct this impression, because I've seen it online that people talking about, well, the town's embarrassed by it. The town's not embarrassed by it. And that had nothing to do with how this was resolved the other day and how we looked at it. The whole issue was trying to get the person in question assistance, because it's quite clear that the person did need that assistance. And we've had it in different areas in town where people have set up tents, even in the wintertime. And we have gone at the situation not to just remove the people or anything like that, but to get them help. And that is something that's the one aspect of this that showed up online. And I never commented on it because it's not going to lead anywhere good to get into that debate. But I do want to make it clear that everything that we've done, as Mr. Armstrong put forward here, focus is on getting the person or persons involved assistance, housing, with Lanark, Leeds, and Grenville mental health and addictions. The United Counties have been fantastic. I reached out to Allison Tutak again because of some concerning comments that I got I think it was last week or the week before, and they sent a team down again. The OPP have been very good and caring and all about this. Our bylaw, we've done what we can, but unfortunately, we're just at a situation where there's only so much we can do. It's never good to see these sorts of situations, but I think we did handle it the best and most caring way that we could. And sadly enough, this is going to be with us obviously for a while. This isn't a one-time only thing, as we've seen in our neighboring communities. And it's just something that society is going to have to really look at in the next few years when it comes to more support for mental health and addictions. And also the housing situation comes into effect here as well, because obviously we're heading into an unstable economic time in the next little bit. And I am quite concerned where we're going to be over the next year or two with regards to situations like this. So as Councillor Burton mentioned, I don't want to get too much into the individual himself, because he deserves, privacy and so forth. But I do hope he's getting assistance. I do hope he's getting help that he does need, and that in the end is that all we can do as a municipality is try to encourage people to get that help. So I do want to thank Matt for putting this together tonight. We talked about a lot the last few weeks how we look at this in terms of, are there bylaws? Are there different? I mean, we don't want to look at it from an enforcement measure, but we want to make sure that we're using the tools that we can to get people into helping situations and it doesn't help anyone to have people living on sidewalks, especially in 40-degree plus weather and so on. So I do hope the best for that individual and anyone that's having any difficulties. Especially when it comes to potential homelessness. I know the United Counties have really, I say it's online, but it does seem that even people, cell phones are such a ubiquitous part of society today. Everybody's got one, but they've really stepped up their efforts on that to try to get it out there. If anyone's having difficulty and there's a possibility that they may become homeless and they do have circumstances that are potentially going to overwhelm their finances, there are options. So please, and I don't know if we should probably tweet some of these as well. If we could add to that just to get it out there, because I do see counties doing it a lot, and we just got to make people aware that there are alternatives and there are options. So just a difficult situation all the way around, but I think been handling the best we can as a small municipality with limited resources. So with that, thank you again, Mr. Armstrong, for that report this evening. And that is it for staff reports tonight. 13 resolutions on none. 14 bylaws. We do have the one bylaw under 14.1, the official plan adoption, which we've already obviously discussed extensively. The recommendation though reads that bylaw 37-2022, being a bylaw to authorize council to adopt an official plan and submit it to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing for approval, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed. Moved by Councilor Young, seconded by Councilor Burton. Any final comments on adopting the official plan? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. 15, new business. Anyone have any new business tonight? Seeing no. 16, notices.
Whoa.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, Lee.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank Mayor Todd. As you all are probably aware, there was a report that was pulled from the meeting tonight in regards to the Lawn Bowling Club. They requested that that report be pulled and not discussed, but I'm not suggesting that we discuss it, but I'm going to put this out there for public consumption. The Lawn Bowling Club has been around since 1893 or 4, if I remember correctly, and in only 2 locations. And the location they are now, they've been since about 1895, 1896. They had a couple dozen members before COVID, but because of COVID, their membership has dwindled, and they do not have enough members now to actually form a proper executive or to look after the club. I've been on a lot of boards. Can you still hear me? I seem to have disappeared.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can still hear you.
All right, thank you. You're back again. I've been on a lot of boards in town, the curling club, the library, Walker House, youth club, and it seems to me that what the Lawn Bowling Club offers to the town of Prescott is something that we should try and preserve. I can't think of any reason really, having tried lawn bowling before COVID, why it wouldn't be successful here. I think part of the problem was they were playing in the evenings, which is what they used to do decades ago, same as the curling club. If the curling club only played in the evenings, there wouldn't be any curling club anymore. But as the membership has aged, they want to play before supper rather than after. And I think that's the savior for the Lawn Bowling Club. So I'm just going to ask and put it out for public thought. The Lawn Bowling Club needs some help. They need some help as far as volunteers for a board goes. They need some help for volunteers as far as their facility goes. They have managed to get a grant to help redo their lawn to the tune of $24,700, I think, which will go a long way to fixing that lawn. But they have no expertise, nobody on the board that really can facilitate doing that. So if there's anybody, if there's people out in the public that are interested in lawn bowling, that are interested in just helping the club to get back on their feet, that think that they could be of use on a board or on a committee to redo the facility, then by all means, please get in touch with either our CAO, Matthew, or Samantha, who is our contact with various organizations in town. And I'm sure that they can put you in touch with whoever the appropriate people are. We should get behind this. I hate to see something disappear that's been around for so long. It's part of our heritage. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Councilor McConnell. I think we're at new business notices of motion. I think I got a shaking heads and nobody buying there. So mayor's proclamations, nothing tonight. Takes us to 18, the closed session. We do have a couple of items under closed tonight. Recommendations that council move into closed session at 7:47 PM to discuss matters pertaining to 18.1 approval of closed session minutes, 18.2 purchase and sale, and that's under section 239 2C of the Municipal Act, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. And we're asking that the CAO, clerk, director of operations, deputy clerk, and economic development officer remain in the room. I think we can remove the economic development officer.
She's actually online.
Oh, okay, so remain in the virtual room. Excellent. Okay, do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Shankar, seconded by Councilor Young. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?